Extreme Championship Wrestling. For its fans, it was one of the greatest promotions that there ever was. By going to the extreme, many fans felt that ECW was really going for greatness. However, even for some of ECW's biggest fans, there is one incident that many will say went just a little too far. It's one of the darkest chapters in the ECW story, and it's also the topic of this episode. Because today, Dave knows the mass transit incident. On November 23, 1996, in Revere, Massachusetts, Extreme Championship Wrestling would be changed forever, because that was the night of the infamous mass transit incident. Now, this occurred at a routine house show and was not meant to air on television. However, there is fan footage of the event that does exist. But due to the sensitive and graphic nature of the incident, as well as the nature of the parties involved, I have elected to refrain from showing any of it. So, don't expect a lot of pictures for this video. With that being said, let's talk about what happened. A match was scheduled for this house show, featuring the team of Axel Rotten and Devon Dudley going against the Gangsters, New Jack and Mustafa. Now, Axel Rotten did not appear on the night of the show, thus leaving Devon without a partner for the match, and that's when Eric Koulis entered the scene. Koulis was a newcomer to the world of wrestling. He was given the gimmick Mass Transit, both as a parody of Jackie Gleason's famous bus driving character Ralph Cramden from the show The Honeymooners, and the name Mass Transit was also a reference to Koulis' larger carriage. And even though he was not scheduled to be on the show, Koulis was there with his ring gear in hand. New wrestling hopefuls often do that just in case they are needed at the last minute, as was the case in this story. So with Mass Transit ready to wrestle and Paul Heyman still needing to fill Axel Rotten's role, Heyman decided that Koulis would get his first match with Extreme Championship Wrestling. Now, even though Heyman had never worked with Koulis before, the man they called Mass Transit came with some good faith. Stephen Koulis, Eric's father, vouched for him, stating that he was a 23-year-old graduate from Killer Kowalski's wrestling school. Kowalski's school is the same school where Triple H and the Eliminators, Saturn and Cronus, all trained, and Heyman had many good experiences with wrestlers who came from there. So, Paul thought that Mass Transit deserved the chance to prove himself. But when it became time to do so, Koulis went about things not in the best way. Allegedly, backstage he was acting very arrogant, demanding, and disrespectful, which alienated the locker room. Something that you definitely don't want to do if you're about to have your very first match with a wrestling company. And it has also been said that there were those in the back who thought that the rookie Koulis needed to be taught some respect. Now, this match was booked to be a total squash, with the Gangsters easily beating down the new guy. But there was one particular part of the booking that the rookie was uncomfortable with: blading. You see, Koulis was told that in the match he was going to have to get some color, which means bleeding. However, Koulis said that he had never bladed himself before, and he asked New Jack to do it for him. Now, onto the match itself. The Gangsters made quick work of Devon on the outside before turning their attention to Mass Transit inside the ring, just as planned. The Gangsters then worked over Mass Transit with assorted foreign objects, like a toaster and crutches, you know, the usual ECW fare. But then came time for the blading, the big spot. New Jack retrieved the surgical scalpel and proceeded to cut Mass Transit's forehead. And he did cut him. He cut him deep. Too deep, severing 2 arteries in the process, which led to what is known as the arterial spray and a pool of blood forming in the ring. Koulis screamed in agony. New Jack even broke character and asked if he was alright. Nevertheless, the Gangsters still continued to work the bleeding Mass Transit over. And then, that's when Koulis' father shouted, "Take it easy on him, he's just a kid. Ring the expletive bell, he's 17. As it turns out, Koulis and his father both lied about his credentials. The person portraying the character of Mass Transit was only 17 years old, a minor, and not legally allowed to work as a wrestler, let alone blade. Koulis had never attended Killer Kowalski's school, and allegedly there was also another wrestler who vouched for Koulis as well, who was also lying. Now, for those of you who are initiated, you are well aware that pro wrestling requires a lot of training, knowing at all times how to behave, and most of all, trust. All of Koulis' bad behavior and inabilities in the ring all stem from his total lack of experience in the business, and as a result, bad things happened. But to make matters worse, as medics came to take Koulis out of the arena, New Jack grabbed the microphone and shouted, "I don't care if this expletive dies, he's white. I don't like white people. I don't like people from Boston. I'm the wrong expletive to expletive with." Koulis was hospitalized and ended up requiring 50 stitches in order to close him up. Following this, the show Inside Edition interviewed the Koulis family and painted the incident in favor of Koulis. They portrayed the situation as a victim who was unprepared and a promotion that failed to protect a child, even going so far as to blame Paul Heyman for not asking for a state ID. Inside Edition also downplayed the fact that Koulis was a willing participant who lied, and that it was Stephen Koulis who was the one who had approached ECW about his son competing. Also, following the Mass Transit incident, Request TV, a pay-per-view provider, canceled ECW's then upcoming Barely Legal pay-per-view, which was slated to air on Christmas Eve. Furthermore, New Jack was also charged with assault and, along with ECW, would be sued by the Koulis family. However, the Barely Legal pay-per-view did eventually air, albeit a few months later than originally planned after some serious begging by Paul Heyman. Also, as a result of Koulis' dishonesty and despite the Inside Edition interview's depiction of the events, New Jack would be acquitted of his assault charges, and the Koulis family would also lose their lawsuit against New Jack and ECW as well. But sadly, Eric Koulis would never live to the age that he claimed to be. He died at the age of 22. Well, there you have it, the story behind one of the most infamous events in all of pro wrestling history. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, Dave knows.